My name is Lauren Pappas, and I am joined again by my father, Dr. Phil Pappas. And today we're going to be talking about managing stress and anxiety in a natural way, as well as depression. And this is a really important topic because everybody is going to experience these things at some point in their life. I know that I have. And we want to tell you how to manage them in a very safe and effective and hopefully in a drug-free way. Like I said, I'm joined by my dad, who has a PhD in nutrition and psychology, and he's going to be giving us some really great tips today. So let's start with defining some terms. Let's start with stress. What is stress?
Okay, so stress, there's good stress, there's bad stress. But if you really look at it in the simplest of terms, stress is when an organism burns more energy than it can create. It goes into a deficit. And that's when stress becomes a problem. That is stress. And as that's a very simple example. But let's say you go to work every day and everything is going just fine. But one day you have a horrible ride, maybe you were in an accident, whatever. Suddenly that's a pretty stressful day. You'll get over it the following day. But the problem with stress is sometimes it keeps rolling and rolling,
It's
day
a
after
snowball
day
effect,
after day.
one thing after
And
the
then we
other.
have chronic stress, and that's where problems start. So stress, it's mental, it's emotional, it's physical, it's tension, it's arising from pressures that may be put on you in this society we live in. You hear people say, he's obviously under stress. Well, what does that mean? So, what are they looking at? Well, he has a funeral, someone died in the family, he's getting divorced, suddenly this person's under a lot of stress and he's struggling. So there's a strain, pressure, tension, nervousness. It's stress. It's not something that you shouldn't be able to handle, and we're going to try to give you some ideas on how to handle that. And I just want to say one thing. This is really a drug-free approach to stress, anxiety, that type of thing. But sometimes there's always, there'll be people who are critically ill, mentally ill, who may need drugs to, preserve their lives, literally. So sometimes we have to say, go to your psychiatrist and take care of this. But for most people, they should be able to handle this themselves. So we're going to try to cover that today. But that's stress in a nutshell.
I think we've all experienced stress in our lives, and it's getting ahead of it before it goes too far. It's having one stressful situation, then being able to manage it before it turns into a snowball effect of...
Well, you said turns into, and that just leads me to think about this in a little more depth. Maybe it's a good time to go over this. What does stress lead to? What can happen? Can stress hurt you? Can stress kill you? Well, if you look at a human under stress, certain things start to go wrong. For instance, it's a protective mechanism. These are mostly protective mechanisms that tend to be problematic over long term. So when you're under stress, you increase your production of cholesterol, fatty acids. These are to produce energy. They may also be protective in the sense that if you have maybe an artery or a vein wound, that cholesterol may in fact save your life by blocking up that wound and keep you from bleeding. Of course, a severe trauma may not help, but this is for just to keep functioning. Along with this increase in energy output, is a decrease in protein synthesis, digestion, and your immune system. So your immune system's down. So now think about this. If you're only stressed for 5 minutes, that isn't a problem. But if you're stressed for 3 years or 2 months or whatever, you've increased your cholesterol, your digestion isn't working like it used to, and your immune system is depressed. So right away, that's a big problem that can result in severe illness, and it does. Along with that, you get an increase in blood pressure. That's necessary for you to act. So if you're going to cross the street in heavy traffic, your blood pressure and your heart rate go up a little bit so you can get across the street. Along with that, you have increased metabolism, again, for energy, that type of thing, increased respiration and heartbeat, all necessary to save your life. But if you're just under chronic stress over and over for no particular reason, or you can't calm yourself down, this is going to hurt you. Mm-hmm. We can't tolerate elevated blood pressure for long periods of time. It's not the way we're made. Now, along with all that, as if things weren't bad enough, you develop localized inflammation or full body inflammation. It starts in one place and before you know it, it's everywhere. And faster blood clotting. This is all protective mechanisms, great in the short run, but something you do not want thicker blood flowing through your veins because you could have a stroke, that type of thing. So that becomes a problem. You have your joints may ache, your muscles may ache, and you go to the doctor and say, I hurt everywhere, there must be something wrong. And in fact, most doctors are going to look at that patient, they're going to ask a couple questions, and they're going to think, this may be stress. Mm-hmm. So your doctor's seen this many times. This is not anything new, but you may not understand it. Mm. So you may need to talk this out with someone. Increased production of blood sugar goes along with this. Well, what's increased production of blood sugar over a long period of time is type 2 diabetes. So stress, diabetes, stress, heart disease, all seems to make sense. And of course, increased stomach acids. You've heard of stress ulceration, duodenal ulcers, stomach ulcers. All these things can happen. When a person is in a coma in the ICU, they're afraid, the pharmacy, the doctors, whatever, they're all covering for stress ulceration. Even though that patient's unconscious, they're in significant stress and they're burning significant calories to keep up with that stress. As many as 5,000 calories a day are needed to keep a person in the ICU where they need to be. And they're also covering for things like ulcerations and infections and that type of thing. Everybody's looking at those things, and they happen. Mm-hmm. So that's what can happen when stress isn't checked, when it goes on and on. So that's a very important factor.
Right. So being in this heightened state of stress all the time really takes a toll on your body.
Absolutely does, and it can hurt you, and it can kill you.
Mm-hmm. It's really scary. And how many people do you know that are under stress? I mean, it's a lot of people. We all have these stressful things. It feels like with technology, it becomes even more stressful nowadays. Where
it is not a stress-free society.
Yeah. It's like we have no break. We can't escape the phone calls and the emails and
it goes on and on.
Right.
It's not like what we were built to be. It was cavemen, and you hunted all day, you relaxed, you ate at night, you
hung
slept,
out with the family.
Hung out with the family. But today we don't live like that.
No.
So it becomes a real problem.
Yeah, we're on 24/7. Let's transition into anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
What is anxiety?
Okay, so anxiety, I guess in the simplest of terms, is probably the result of all that stress. Now there are maybe some exceptions, maybe not. Generally speaking, you're under a lot of stress, you're going to develop anxiety. A lot of times you don't see the anxiety coming. You might just have a panic attack from all your stress. And then you have anxiety. Mm-hmm. So anxiety, it's a feeling, these are feelings that you might have: worry, nervousness, you're uneasy, you're uncertain about the future, you're apprehensive possibly. You have a lot of concerns. You may feel these feelings of foreboding, and along with that come phobias and a whole lot of other things that can develop as a result of that, along with panic attacks.
Yeah.
So that's anxiety, and anxiety is something that it can get to the point where it literally, you are totally crippled.
Yeah.
You know, you can't function. You may be in the house with all the blinds drawn and hiding. That's how bad it could get.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just anxiety seems like stress compounded.
Yes.
And then from that, spawns all these other issues. How does anxiety affect a patient?
Well, along with all those feelings that they might have, it's also going to prevent them from thinking clearly. They may have foggy thought. They may not really be able to process things properly. It's almost like they developed ADD out of the blue. But in reality, it's just all that stress and anxiety preventing them from cognitively being effective and functioning. So they could make horrible mistakes, financially. And then on top of that, they might start picking up habits like gambling, drinking, very dangerous
compulsive,
habits. Compulsive behaviors. Yes,
behavior.
exactly. So all this can arise from the anxiety.
Let's transition into another gear, which is depression.
Yes.
What is depression?
So depression can be very severe, and like we said earlier, you might have to go to a psychiatrist, and you might have to take drugs to prevent, a person from harming themselves. We have bipolar depression, which is very dangerous for many people, and that may not be part of what we're talking about today. We're talking about overall depression, and there are there's pharmaceutical products obviously for these things, but we also have supplements that might be able to do this, and there's other interventions that you can do for depression and anxiety. You take a walk. You get fresh air. This is exactly what people don't do that have these problems very often.
Because they're too depressed to leave.
Exercise.
And it's the very thing that's going to help them.
Deep breathing. One of my skills that I use is biofeedback. Biofeedback teaches you how to recognize what's going on and change it. And it's a very simple system. And today we have so many great ways to use biofeedback. I can teach people to use a clock for biofeedback. We have apps on our phones for biofeedback. It's really amazing. Once somebody shows you how to do it, you can do it. But I want to just go to walking for a second. So I found some information on walking, which is kind of nice the way they lay it out. So I'm just going to kind of read it. This is how walking affects your body. And it's pretty amazing. If you walk for 3 minutes, your blood pressure will actually decrease. And I've done this not realizing what I was going to say today, obviously, but I've actually gotten on a treadmill and run, brought my heart rate up, and then relaxed while I'm running, and the heart rate goes down 5 points.
Wow.
So it's very possible. When you walk outside, you feel better. So in 5 minutes, your mood is improved.
Yes.
Excuse me. And 5 to 10 minutes improves your thinking, makes you more focused. 15 minutes, your blood sugar starts to decrease, particularly after you've had a meal. And in 30 minutes of walking, you start to lose a little weight. And if you increase your walking speed, you increase the calorie burn. And of course, for somebody who has anxiety, if suddenly they start seeing their body image as a little better, I lost 5 pounds. That can be really actually...
Then it improves your self-confidence, improves your mood.
Now, in 40 minutes of walking, you actually start to help your heart become more efficient and healthier. And if you did that every day, you'd have a nice, healthy heart. 90 minutes of walking outside reduces the number of depressive thoughts. You just don't have depressive thoughts when you're out there in the fresh air walking and enjoying yourself. So walking is an amazing way to make yourself feel better. Cost you nothing.
Yes. I am a huge advocate for walking. It's been a part of my life. Since I was little, I've always gone out of my way to take walks every day. Even if you can't do it all in, a 30-minute period, it's like you could take a couple 10-minute walks every day after each meal. And it'll accumulate and you'll get those amazing benefits that you were talking about.
You will. And don't underestimate burning up the calories, lowering your blood sugar in particular.
Right.
Blood sugar does not have a positive effect on our cognitive behavior or cognitive thinking. So it's very important that we stay healthy that way. It's a good time for me to throw this in. I talked about biofeedback. People, do Tai Chi nowadays. They go to yoga. There are so many interesting ways to approach this
stress.
and relieve your stress and make yourself less depressed. Exercise, of course. So, and it's endless. It's just a really great hobby.
Yes.
I always find, in my case, playing some music is really very helpful. In fact, there's whole books done on music, music as a therapy for mental illness. So it's a real important thing.
Yeah, and for me, I grew up with learning disabilities, as some of you may know, and it gave me a lot of stress and anxiety in school. And for me, the biggest stress reliever was when I started to work out. I ran cross country, I started lifting weights in the gym, and that to me, I took out all of my aggression that I had and all of the stress that I had from school, and then I turned it into something really positive. I started to do better in school. I was more attentive, I was more interested in it, and it boosted my self-confidence, which is the most important part of it. So it just made me a happier, more positive person because of it. Let's circle back to anxiety. What are anxiety disorders?
So anxiety disorders are disorders that develop from prolonged anxiety, ongoing anxiety. I'm not going to give you, before I give you an example, they're usually avoidance type of behaviors. Like, I have to use the steps, I'm afraid of the elevator. I can't go into certain buildings. I can't drive down certain streets. Now, I've had more than one client who may develop this phenomena of not wanting to go over a bridge driving. And almost always their job's on the other side of the bridge. So when you hear that, you have to say, I wonder what the anxiety is that they're having so much trouble with. But very often, in the cases I've seen, that bridge activity, and it's very common, by the way, has a lot to do with work.
Yeah, the bigger issue. Yeah,
the bigger issue. So these are the types of things that can pop out and make your life pretty miserable. So you can't function. A person came to me and said, how am I going to keep my job if I can't drive across the river to my job? You know, and I said, well, that's something we had to deal with. And it's not easy. But how many people are afraid to fly on a plane?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
It goes on. And if you think about this, these are not particularly rational outcomes here. How often does a commercial flight crash? It's safer than a car. It's actually safer than a train, I believe, and trains are pretty safe. So it's pretty unusual that you would be in trouble on a flight. So, it's not rational. You're not looking at the information.
Yeah, the statistics.
The statistics, exactly. If you look at the statistics, it makes great sense, but you tell that to a person with anxiety disorder,
right?
They're not getting on the plane.
Yeah. Yep. What are the signs and symptoms of anxiety disorders?
Okay, so some of these may also be signs and symptoms of depression also. So we're covering two birds with one stone here. Difficulty concentrating. Cognitively, we start to not function that well when we have anxiety or depression. Irritability. You can be very irritable. You can have mood swings. That could be depression. It could just be anxiety. It could be both. Tense muscles. Now, you'll hear a lot of people say, tense muscles, a lot of body aches and pains. Maybe I have fibromyalgia. I've been to 7 doctors. All of them say I don't have anything, but I'm aching everywhere. I must have something. but the last thing in their minds is, I must have anxiety. All right? So a lot of times, a physician will look at a person that way and say, well, they have a lot of pain, so what do I give them? And it isn't a surprise if that physician gives them Zoloft or Paxil, because they know that might help them, and they think that patient is suffering really from anxiety. The patient just doesn't get it.
Right.
So you have to face up to this, and you have to get someone to guide you through it so you understand what you're up against. So tense muscles, pain, joint pain, all those things. Sleep disturbance, that probably you should have that in a number one spot, because so many people with anxiety and depression have sleep disturbance. It's so common. And for somebody to, well, people say this to me all the time. They say, I don't know why I can't sleep. I have a very relaxed life. I'm retired. Well, believe me, once you delve into that, the retirement itself may be the anxiety.
Yeah.
It may be depression because they're not working anymore.
Yeah.
Before you know it, they're in bed at night ruminating about all kinds of things instead of sleeping.
Yeah.
They've lost their focus maybe. So products that will help you sleep may be very important. Difficulty overcoming worries, like worrying about everything all the time. Symptoms of different kinds of symptoms would include, by the way, don't forget panic attacks, obsessive compulsive behavior, dread of social interactions, and of course, anytime you've had a few traumas in your life, you might re-experience those traumas. So all those things really create some issues. But I think this is a good place for us to mention some of the products that we have for this. You can go to earthfoods.us, our website, and you can see some of these products. They'll be under anxiety and stress. There'll be a depression, anxiety, stress button at the top of the page. And you can click on there and you can see some of these products. Products that let's say they're cornerstone products. We have neurotransmitters that kind of help us function. And 4 neurotransmitters that I look at would be dopamine, GABA, acetylcholine, and the serotonin neurotransmitter. Now, when I say serotonin neurotransmitter, a lot of people know this because it goes with Paxil and Zoloft. They know there's a serotonin issue. Serotonin tends to modulate or make mood more steady, so you don't have a lot of peaks and valleys. So the pharmaceutical industry has latched on to that concept, and they've developed these products to try to interact or try to act on our serotonin neurotransmitter. Very often, if you're under stress, you don't want to fool with the serotonin neurotransmitter. It's not appropriate, and it may create more problems. So the first 2 neurotransmitters that I spend a whole lot of time with is the GABA neurotransmitter and the acetylcholine neurotransmitter. And 2 or 3 products that work quite well in those areas. We have GABA, and we have a new form of GABA, patented form of GABA that crosses the blood-brain barrier. This simple, inexpensive product may make you concentrate, make your anxiety or your stress go away. It may pick you up from depression. There's a whole lot of things about GABA that are quite good. It has a cousin or maybe a brother. And by the way, these are amino acids. So they're basically protein derivatives. And L-theanine is kind of similar to GABA. It works on the GABA neurotransmitter. Yes, it comes from green tea, but there's no green tea in it by the time this product comes to market. L-theanine becomes a whole body GABA. So it just doesn't work from the neck up. Kind of has a good relaxing effect on the body. And very effective if you have kind of an exhaustion type of stress, anxiety. If you're not sleeping, a lot of products have been formulated with a double dose of L-theanine, and along with a melatonin can be very effective in helping your sleep. But I do see these formulas, and they're really depending on L-theanine and a double dose of L-theanine as a sleep product. There's nothing wrong with that. It works quite well. L-theanine is extremely safe. To back up a second, GABA is also very safe, but you don't want to use GABA with the psychotropic type drugs like benzodiazepines and serotonin reuptake inhibitors. That might be a mistake. You might get away with it. Most people do. But there could be an interaction, so you got to be aware of that. L-theanine seems to be safer than that. So these two are important. Now, if we move over to the acetylcholine neurotransmitter, we can test for the amino acid serine. And we see a lot of people with low serine levels. There's a wonderful product called phosphatidylserine. Phosphatidylserine is a wonderful product for stress, anxiety, even depression. Stabilizes mood, makes you feel better, makes you calm down. Can help with, it's not the greatest sleep product, but it's often in some of the sleep combination products because it's so comforting and relaxing. It also works nicely on the body as far as aches and pains. It actually kind of helps that all kind of resolve. In females, it's very good at balancing hormones. So if you're having mood swings, that type of thing, for a female, this is an important product. It works great on males. Now, you can also use phosphatidylcholine. It's kind of the originator of phosphatidylserine. It's not as good at some things, but if you're just plain old having cognitive memory issues and focusing, sometimes phosphatidylcholine will do a great job for you. Phosphatidylserine is a patented type of product. It's a little more expensive, but it's a great product. Let's go over to the dopamine neurotransmitter. If you're suffering from depression, sometimes giving the dopamine a little bit of a kick, and there are pharmaceutical products that do this, may help. Things like ashwagandha and rhodiola are very good for maybe the dopamine neurotransmitter. Balancing hormones, they do a great job. So ashwagandha, rhodiola, 2 herbs, but they're really good. Some products, there are some people who have used products that are just rhodiola and had amazing results, even with severe mental health issues. So that's something to keep in mind. BrainMD, which is Daniel Amen's line of supplements. And Daniel Amen is, when it comes to cognitive, he is everything. You listen to him and you'll learn a lot. So he has some wonderful products. And on the website, we have Restful Sleep, which is a great sleep combination product. So these combinations can be helpful, so you don't have to think this out so carefully. He calls it Restful Sleep. Well, you know what that's for.
Right.
He has Everyday Stress. That's another product. And Everyday Stress is just a product. If you feel you're under stress all the time, try Everyday Stress. So it's on the website, easy to get. Serotonin Mood Support. If you're really having issues with depression and you do not want to take drugs, or your doctor says, why don't you try to work this out, see if you can, why should we have to go to drugs? Doctors will say that sometimes, especially if they don't think the patient's in danger. They may say, take a walk, take a vacation, whatever. You could take serotonin mood support. That would be a great combination product. And then they also have a GABA combination product called GABA Calming. So you'll see those products there. You'll see GABA, you'll see L-theanine. And these are really core products for this type of thing. So that's what we're offering. We're also offering consults, and you'll see a button for that. If you need more help, if you need more information, you can have a consult with me, and we can work on those things.
And this is everything that he is mentioning is all at www.earthfoods.us, www.earthfoods.us. We'll have a link below in the comments where you can click on that and go to the website and find all these products. And a lot of the products that you mentioned, GABA, phosphatidylcholine, L-theanine, calming GABA, are all things that I've taken that I've had a lot of success with when it comes to concentration and mood, and I love them, and I've recommended them to other people, and they've had great success with them too.
Occasionally, if I'm having trouble sleeping, if I get into a strange pattern,
Yeah.
I'll take L-theanine and a melatonin.
Yes.
Very, very important
Yeah.
to get good sleep. Without sleep, you're in trouble.
It's everything. And that's another snowball effect. If you're not getting good sleep, then you wake up the next day, you don't have any energy, you're in a bad mood, and then all of a sudden, you stub your toe, and then it's just a snowball effect of crappy things happening. So very important. Also love tryptophan too.
Yes. Yep, you'll see that there too.
Yeah.
So I think we've done it again.
Yes, we have done it again. I think that about wraps everything up for this topic of stress, anxiety. We talked about depression today, and I hope that helps you guys out. Like I said, everybody's going to be afflicted by these things at some point in their life if they haven't already, or you're going to know somebody who's going through it right now. I guarantee it. So I hope that our tips today could help you out. And we thank you for joining us. Again, you can find those products and more information at www.earthfoods.us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
2, 3, 4. Anxiety, and I can't tell delusion from reality, and I can't tell if I am coming or if I'm going, and I'm living in a world of anxiety. Well, I'm living in a world of mediocrity.